Hey there friends, it's Darren here from ProBlogger. Better turn on my microphone. Always rookie mistake, don't turn on your microphone, but it's Darren here from ProBlogger. Welcome to this week's Facebook Live video where I want to talk about how to get more personal with your readers, how to get a more engagement from them and to make them feel like they are connected to you and what you're on about with your blog. I've got 11 strategies that I want to walk you through in today's teaching. For those of you watching the replay, I'll start that in a couple of minutes, but I do want to say g'day to those of you who are joining live. Now, those of you who were watching yesterday, I did a little test with this new camera that I've been using. It's a Sony A7 III Mark III, and I'm going live with that today. So I have been adjusting the setup, adjusting the microphone, still kind of working it out, trying to work out what works. So if you've got feedback on that, do let us know what you think about the setup, and any feedback that you've got will be certainly helpful. Now, I've got the camera set up here and my notes just next to it, so I'm going to be kind of glancing side to side a little bit, and that's something that I will change from time to time. But I did want to say g'day and let me know where you're watching from as well. I can see Reva has joined the room. Good to see you, Reva. Hope you're doing well. Let us know as you join in today where you're watching from, what your blog URL is. This is a time where you are more than welcome to share what you are doing. I would love this to be a time where I connect with you, but also you connect with each other as well. So look out for one another in the comments. Respond to any questions that you see there that you know the answer to, and feel free to share who you are and what you do as well. Would love you to connect with one another. And I guess in some ways that's one of the points that I want to cover today. If you can create an experience where your readers or your listeners or your viewers feel like you're connecting with them, but also they're welcome to connect with other people, that is a more engaging experience. But that's really what one of the things that I want to talk a little bit about today. Hi Tox, good to see you. Hey Dawn from Silicon Valley and Renee from Washington State. I can see David there as well. Good to see you, and good to see you, Lainey. Hope you're doing well on the other side of Melbourne, where I am. It's a bit of a grey, cloudy day here in Melbourne. Cooling down. Summer has definitely ended, and excitedly for me, kids have gone back to school today. So I've got a quiet house for the first time in a couple of weeks as well. Philippe, good to see you. Thanks for tuning in. Linda as well from Incited Inc. Good to see you. Rabia, good to see you from Portland, Oregon as well. So we've got lots of you joining in today from around the world. It's great to have you here. As I said at the top of the show before some of you joined in, today I want to give you 11 strategies or 11 principles to help you to build a more engaging personal experience for your audience. That's what today's show is all about. We've got Lainey very excited that school's gone back here in Australia as well. Reva is saying that your school holidays have just started today. Well, I'm sorry about your productivity loss. My productivity is about to go through the roof. I've got a busy day today. Good to see you, Kayleen, as well. Okay, so I want to get into these 11 things. But before I do it, I want to kind of you to think about your experience with these sort of connection that you have. Do you have in your experience going back that experience of feeling really connected to a blogger? I think for me, there's been numerous times over the years where I've found a blog and I just feel like that blogger is talking directly to me through their writing. I certainly in podcasting, I have that experience where you listen in and you just think, this person knows who I am. They're talking to me. Are they looking at my diary? Are they talking to my friends? Have you ever had that experience with a blogger? Maybe you want to share who that blogger was for you. Some people just seem to have this sense in the way that they create content of who is on the other side and have this ability to draw the reader, the listener, the viewer into almost a conversation through the way that they communicate. Have you had that experience? I'd love to hear from you who it has been that has drawn you in that way. I'm listening to a guy called Rob Bell at the moment, a podcast. It's kind of a spirituality kind of podcast, and I feel like every time I listen to his podcast, I feel like he's talking to me, and it's probably because he's got a similar background to me, and he's sharing on topics that I'm kind of wrestling with at the moment, but also the way that he delivers. I think he delivers it in a very personal way, and so for me, that's one podcaster that I feel like is talking directly to me. If you've ever had that experience, I think it's really interesting to do some thinking about what was going on there. What were they doing that made that connection, that made you feel that connected to them? And what I want to share today are 11 things that I've noticed other people doing that have made me feel connected to them, and 11 things that I've tried over the years that have seem to work with my audience as well. So some of these you will have tried before, and some of them perhaps you can set yourself a challenge to do this week. My theory is that some people have a natural ability to do this. Some people just ooze this stuff. They just get it. They instinctively know how to make it this sort of connection with people. But the rest of us who that's not natural for, I think can learn how to do it. And there's certainly some things that you can do if you don't feel like that's your gift or your skill. There are things that you can do to help with that. Kayleen's saying Lana Vorza is good at that. Reva's saying, when we moved to Australia, I was following lots of blogs about things to do here. I followed Travelling Corkscrew, a wine blogger, and the chef, his wife, and their perfect life, and have actually ended up becoming friends in real life. And that's the interesting thing. Sometimes those personal connections that you have with a blogger, sometimes they're just one way, and the blogger doesn't even know who you are, but sometimes they do extend into real life as well, which is great. Okay, so here's 11 things that I've learned that help on this level. First one is to tell personal stories, and those of you who've been watching these videos know that I talk about storytelling a lot. I'm huge on it. I think the more you can tell stories, the better. Whether they're your stories or other people's stories. I did a live video a few weeks ago on storytelling. I've got some links for you to go back to and listen to if you do want to pick up some ideas on any of these things, and one of them is on storytelling. I'm going to share all those links at the end of this session, because while you're watching a live video is not the time for you to be going across and looking at things. But if you do want some more tips on any of these things, I've got some links for you at the end. I think one of the most powerful tools that you have at your disposal is storytelling, particularly when you tell your own story. This makes people relate to you in a very powerful way. But the stories don't need to be personal stories. They don't need to be, heartfelt personal stories. That certainly can help. But any story that you can tell that shows that you've had an experience with the topic that you're talking about is a very powerful thing. Stories make you relatable, and instead of becoming some sort of lofty, untouchable expert, they show that you are a person who's still on the journey. You're still learning. You're still experiencing what your readers or your listeners are experiencing. So any kind of stories that you might be able to share certainly help on this front. Lainey's saying that Kelly Exeter is someone who has this sort of gift, and I agree with that. And Kelly is someone who does tell stories quite a bit. If you listen to her podcast, there's a lot of storytelling. There's a lot of vulnerability in Kelly's writing as well, as she shares her own story, both on a big picture thing across her content, different pieces of content, but also in individual pieces of content. The second thing that I want to talk about is the way that you write, particularly. Write like you speak, if you can. Now, everyone's style of writing is going to be a little bit different, and so this may be more useful for some of you than others. But when I first started blogging, the first blogs I saw were written in a very authoritative style. They were written almost like essays. They were more technical in their writing, and I thought when I started blogging that that's how all bloggers wrote, that you had to write with that almost a professor type voice. And I tried to do that, and my content really didn't work. That voice didn't work for me at all. And for me, I discovered that I'm much better as a communicator when I write in a more conversational tone. If you've heard me speak, you know that even when I speak, do public speaking, I speak from the front in a more conversational style as well. I try and do that on the podcast as well. It's who I am. And what I found is that as soon as I switched to that style of writing, I began to get comments from people. I began to get emails from people. People were reading that more professor type content, but they obviously weren't relating to it. They obviously didn't feel drawn into it at all. And so I began to write as I speak. Now, I did do a podcast interview with someone called by the name of Beth Dunn. It was back in episode 52, and I'm going to give you the link to that at the end of this video as well. I would highly recommend you go and listen to that. The whole interview is about how to write like a human, not a robot. And just simple things like using I've instead of I have. You know, those contracted words, they're more human. And that's the way that people talk. And so if you're able to bring those things into your writing, it comes across as you being more relatable, more personal in some way. So I'll give you the link to that at the end. There's about 10 things that you can do just to humanize your writing in a little bit, in I guess, a more conversational tone. Now, connected to this is the third thing I want to talk about, and that is the use of personal language. And this, I think, actually came up in the interview that I did with Beth as well. And it's just a little tweak to the way that you write that can make a big difference. Using personal pronouns particularly. So anytime that you can use the word you in your writing and in your presentations is a very powerful thing. You might notice that I actually, in the title of this video, I said how to create a more personal experience with your blog's audience. I used the word your there very intentionally. I could quite easily have said how to create a more personal experience on a blog, but I wanted to use the word your there. That little tweak immediately makes anyone who sees that think about their experience. Now, it may seem like a small thing, but it actually has a big impact. It takes your writing or your presenting from being theoretical to being personal. Immediately someone reads that kind of content where you are using the word you and you're talking about their situation, they begin to personalize it. They begin to apply it to their own situation more. It's just a small tweak, but it can make a big difference. If you think about it in conversation, if someone asks you a question about a problem that they have, you would never respond in a theoretical tone. You would respond saying, this is what I think you should do. You would ask them questions about it. You would draw it out, and it would be about their particular question, their particular situation. And so you want to try and bring that into your writing. Someone is reading your content with a problem, with a situation. Acknowledge that situation by using those kinds of words. One thing that can help you with this is the fourth thing that I want to talk about. And it's just a simple technique, and that is to picture your reader or picture your listener or picture your viewer as you are creating the content. Now, this can be difficult. You know, when I first started out, I would be sitting at my computer, I'd be looking at the screen, and I would be looking at words appearing on the screen. I'd be writing to my computer. But when I began to picture the person on the other side, I began to realize that I was writing in a much more personal way. One of the best things that you can do if you haven't done it already is to create an avatar. I used to call these reader profiles, and these are just descriptions of who is reading your blog or who you want to read your blog. Doing that exercise of creating the avatar gives you someone to picture as you're writing. And what I would highly recommend you do is to print out that avatar and to actually try and find a picture of one of your readers if you can, or a picture of someone who you think might be the kind of person who would read your blog, and have it sitting next to your computer. I've actually got someone right here next to me on a piece of paper that I printed out just to remind me of the type of person who is reading my blog. And as I'm writing, I look across at the person. And again, it's just a small thing, but it reminds you there's a person on the other side. It helps you to use those more personal pronouns. It gives you something to visualize, to put yourself in their shoes. And this really can bring your content alive. Now, again, at the end of this video, I've got some further reading on this. And one of the things that we've got for you is a worksheet to help you create an avatar. We've actually set up a little member library area on ProBlogger. And one of the resources that we've put in there's about 6 or 7 of them. I'll show you them in a minute. But we've actually put in there a worksheet that will give you that. So just stay tuned and I'll give you that in a moment. Okay, the fifth thing is again related to this, and that is to base your posts upon real reader needs. Now, this might be a little bit obvious in some ways, but one of the things that will come out of creating that avatar with your of your audience, and one of the things you need to include in that avatar is the needs of your audience. And the only way you're going to find out the needs of your audience is to look at your own needs, your own past needs, but also to have conversation with your audience in some way. And so one of the things I highly recommend you do is, and this is something you could be doing right now as you're watching this or straight after this video, that is to tap into your audience's needs by asking them questions. You might want to set up a survey. If you've got a big enough audience that you think you get some responses, go to SurveyMonkey, set up a simple survey and ask questions about your audience's problems, their needs, their dreams, their motivations, these types of things. The more you understand those things, the better position you'll be in to write content that's not only useful, but they feel like they know who you are. You know, when you collect those problems from your audience, you're able to address them and they'll respond to that. So a survey can work. A lot of people I know send emails to their list. And this can be a great first email when someone signs up to your email list. You can just ask a couple of questions, and this is something I've seen. I think Kaz and Craig Makepeace do it on Why Travel Blog. Donna Moritz does it on Socially Sorted. Their first emails to their list ask 2 questions. Tell us about your biggest need or your biggest challenge, and tell us about your biggest dream, and as it pertains to the topic that you're writing about. Now, they get a lot of emails back from that, which creates some work for them, but it's really insightful stuff. They begin to understand the problems of their audience and the dreams of their audience. So an email might be one way to do that, or simply asking it on social media, asking every now and again, do you have any questions? Or what's your biggest challenge? I did this on our Facebook group a couple of weeks ago. Had about 20 or 30 people give me their biggest challenges at the moment. And at the moment, I'm working through those and creating podcasts on those things. And I know that I'm creating podcasts on topics that our audience is really struggling with, and that's going to be a good thing. So collect problems, collect challenges, collect dreams and goals from your audience. These types of things can inform your topics. They will unearth topics that you can write about, which is a big thing. The other thing I'd say is when you are reading their responses, don't just pay attention to the topics. Pay attention also to the language that they're using as well. And you'll sometimes find that they're using the same word. All of them are using the same kind of words. And this leads me to my 6th point, and that is to write about your readers' feelings, fears, and dreams as well. One of the things you'll notice when you do a survey of your audience or you ask them for their problems is that you will get ideas for topics, but you'll also get a feel for what they're feeling as well. And so this is reading between the lines of their responses. So I actually did that exercise about a year ago now. I sent an email to my list on ProBlogger. Might have even been 2 years ago now. And I asked them those 2 questions. What's your biggest challenge and what's your biggest dream with blogging? And I got a couple of hundred people email me back. So it created a bit of work for me. But what I did is I took all the responses that they sent me via email. I actually responded to every single person and thanked them for the response so that they got that personal engagement. But I took all their responses and I put them into 2 word clouds. Their challenges one and a dreams one. So I created these word clouds and I began to analyze them. And the reason I did that is I wanted to get their biggest topics. That's what I thought I was going to get out of it. But it worked. I began to understand, there traffic was a word that came up again and again. Content came up again and again. SEO came up again and again. So these are topics. But I also noticed in the word cloud that there were other words, and these words were feeling words. I saw the word fear came up as a big word. Afraid. are scared, those kind of words. And these are kind of more negative words. And when I dug into the comments, I saw that they were often shared in the context of the topic. So people were fearful, afraid and scared of SEO or of these different things. Understanding that feeling was really useful. There were also other words there. There was words like excited, passion, those type of words as well. And what I realized is that by unearthing these feeling words, I was in a much better position not only to write about the topics that were useful to my audience, but I was able to write with more empathy. I was able to weave into my content the fact that I know this is a scary thing for people. I know that this is something that a lot of people are excited about. Understanding the feelings, the dreams, the fears of people put me in a great position to create content that connected with them on a deeper level. They weren't just interesting on a head level, but they were deeply personal in different ways. One of the things I did after that experience is I created a podcast. I think it was episode 121 on imposter syndrome, which I had noticed through this survey wasn't a topic that people mentioned, but I could see by looking at those feeling words that it was a topic that was relevant. I got so many emails from readers and listeners once we published that podcast, because it really connected to people on a deeper level as well. I'll give you a link to that podcast at the end of this video. I'm up to 7. There's 11. I've got 4 more to go. So number 7 is to go off topic from time to time. Now, if you look at ProBlogger, you look at Digital Photography School, my 2 main blogs, you'll see that almost all of the content that I've created is on topic on those blogs. But if you look at the Twitter account that I've got and my Instagram account, you see I go off topic in those places. And occasionally in my podcast, I'll mention I've been on holidays, or at the start of this video, I mentioned the fact that we've just finished school holidays. So I try and weave in where I can off-topic things. And what I actually notice is that I sometimes get more feedback from my readers on the off-topic little mentions that I do than I do on the topic itself. And I saw even at the start of this video, people relating to that idea of school holidays starting or ending. So weaving in those little off-topic moments can create little moments of resonance and relatability with your audience. Immediately, any parent in the room knows, the joy of school holidays, but also the hard part about it of being productive. Pat Flynn does this really well in the intro of all his podcasts. We see he shares something personal from his life. It might be an interest he's had, an embarrassing moment, something he's learned, something he did when he was a kid. Pat tells me that he gets a lot of responses about those moments. People come up and say, hey, I'm also a fan of this, or I also had that experience. That creates a personal connection with people. Very powerful. Hey, Tony, good to see you. So going off topic can be a useful thing. You just don't want to do it too much. You want to keep the bulk of what you do on topic and relevant to your audience, but taking those little opportunities to create a moment of resonance and relatability is a powerful thing. Tip number 8 is to use multimedia. Using different types of media humanizes you. If you're just writing, that you can be human through your writing, and some people have a real gift of that. But when you add a photo of yourself in there, that gives you a face. When you use audio, that gives you a voice. When you use video, it gives you a face and a voice, and people can pick up your sense of humor, they can see your body language, they can see your passion. Live video can really ramp up these things. Now, this isn't everyone's cup of tea, and I completely understand that many of you are just like curling up in the fetal position right now at the thought of going live on video, or even creating a video where your face is there, or doing a podcast, or even putting your face on a picture on your blog. I completely understand that feeling, but it is a very powerful thing, and anything you can do to personalize it in some kind of way is going to help. Now, I told the story on ProBlogger about 3 or 4 years ago about Vanessa, who is my wife. When she started blogging, she did it anonymously and she didn't put her face on it. And I wrote a post on what happened when she shared her first selfie. It brought her blog alive. From the moment she began to share pictures of herself using her real name, telling her own stories, her blog came alive. She got more traffic, she got more shares, she got more comments. So I'll share that post at the end as well. It's going to take you out of your comfort zone though, so you may want to just take some small steps into that. Number 9 is to attend events. I'm not going to talk about this in too much detail, but one of the most powerful things I did in the early days of my blogging was to attend events that were relevant to my topics. Now, this is going to take some investment. It's going to take some time. It may take quite a bit of investment if you need to travel, but even going to a meetup in your local area on your topic, going to an industry event can really help to understand the needs and how your readers might be feeling. You may not actually meet any of your readers, but meeting people who are like your readers will tell you a lot and help you to create more personal content. The other type of event that you might want to try is online events, joining a hashtag chat, running your own sort of live videos. This in some ways is an event. It's something that I do every week, having that kind of a show. Thanks, Tony, and good to see you, Sonia, from Canada. Cold times over there. Kayleen's saying it's so worth getting past that fear that I was talking about of putting yourself out there, putting your face out there, putting your voice out there. Yes, it is. And you're going to learn so many skills in doing your first Facebook Live. And you'll learn so much about your audience as well. Hey, Wendy, good to see you as well. I'm on the second last thing. This is the second last technique to get more personal with your audience. And that is to work on getting any kind of interaction. I was actually at an event, a meetup, last year, I think it was, and I met one of the ProBlogger readers. And we got to talking, and she told me that she'd been reading ProBlogger for 5 or 6 years, but never really felt a personal connection to it. She found the topic interesting, she found it useful, but it really came alive for her when she joined our Facebook group for the first time and left her first comment. She said she can trace to that day that she felt a more personal connection with me and my brand the first time she did something. A lot of your readers are very passive. They read your content, they listen to your podcast, they watch your video, but they don't actually say anything. You know, I can see that right now there's 21 of you watching live. I don't know how many of those, maybe half, have left a comment. And a lot of people like to lurk, they like to be passive, and that's totally fine. But any time that you get someone to leave a comment, to like something that you've done, to join a group or to join a forum, to send you an email, to subscribe, anytime that they do something, they're a little bit more engaged. It's an investment. They put themselves out there, and as a result, it becomes a more personal experience for them. And so what I really do encourage you to do is all the time be calling people to take small actions. Call people to leave a comment. Call people to send you an email. Call people to vote in a poll. Anytime they do that, you are just adding a little bit of an investment from them into what you're doing, which gives them a little bit more ownership of your blog, which gives them a little bit more of a feeling that they are reaching out to you. Now, it's also really important when they do that, that you meet them halfway, that you connect with them, that you acknowledge that comment, that you like what they're doing as well, that you respond to them. This is very powerful. And even if you just do it with a small group of people, other people that are passively there see those interactions as well. I know that, you know, the 10 people who haven't left a comment on this video yet are seeing me interacting with other people, which hopefully is making those who are a little bit more passive, maybe that aren't in a position to leave a comment or feel nervous about engaging, more open to that as well. Hi Sonia, good to see. Something looks different tonight, she says. I'll talk about that in a moment. It is a new camera. And the last thing I want to talk about is writing or speaking, if you're doing video or podcasting from the heart. One of the best things that I think you can do in creating content is to allow yourself to feel something about what you're writing about or what you're delivering. Writing on topics that interests you is one thing, but writing about something that you feel something about is another. Now, not every post that you write needs to be a feeling from the heart, emotional piece, but allow yourself from time to time to go there. Allow yourself from time to time to write a piece of content that maybe verges on being a bit of a rant. It's something that you're passionate about or something that you feel emotional about, and allow that to come through in your content. It's a very powerful thing. One of the podcasts that I get most reaction about is when I tell my health journey a couple of years ago, when I realized that I was slowly letting myself go, not only physically, but also mentally and socially and spiritually, and how I kind of had a bit of a turnaround on that front. I shared that podcast really nervously because it was personal, but also because it came from the heart. And I got so much response from that. So allow yourself to feel something about your content. I love the quote from Robert Frost. He says, "No tears in the writer, no tears in the reader. No surprise in the writer, no surprise in the reader." Allow yourself to feel something. Allow yourself to express in that more emotional way from time to time, and you're going to create a deeper connection. If you're not willing to be personal with your readers aren't going to be willing to be personal with you. They take your lead. It's so important to model what you want from your readers in some way. Now, they're my 11 tips. If you've joined us halfway along, you can go back and listen to the early ones. I did promise that I was going to share some further listening with you. I've mentioned a few links along the way. So what I'm going to do is just, before I get into some Q&A, if you've got questions, feel free to pop them in. What I want to do is, in the comments, I'm just going to leave a comment with further listening, further reading. It's got some links there. I've got 14 types of stories to tell, because we talked about storytelling. I've got the interview with Beth Dunn where we talked about writing like a human, not a robot. I've popped in there the member library. I want to show that to you in a moment, and that's where you can get the avatar worksheet. I've got dealing with imposter syndrome, that podcast I mentioned, and I've got the post that I wrote about Vanessa sharing her humble selfie and how that changed her blog. So what I want to do is, just before I get into Q&A, is just to show you this members area that we've set up. This is it. I've shared the link in the comments there. You can see it probably up in the top there as well. This is just an area where you can sign up and get these free resources, basically. We've, over the years, created a number of resources for readers, and we thought we should put them all into one spot so people can get them. This one here is the Creating a Reader Avatar for Your Blog, and this is a worksheet that you can download. It just works you through how to create an avatar. We've also got our 6 months of blog post ideas sitting there as well. I know a lot of you have already got that one. We've got a worksheet on finding readers for your blog. We've got how to make an impact with your blog, another worksheet there. We've got blog email services comparison for those of you who are thinking about email service providers. And then we've got a workbook there on evaluating your blog's first year. So they're just some free things that we've kind of popped together. And anytime that we create more of those, we will put them in there as well. All right. I'm going to go just scroll back because I know some of you have left comments along the way that I haven't seen yet. If you've got a question, if you've got an idea about how you create more of a personal connection with your reader, something that I didn't cover, feel free to pop it in there as well. And yeah, Tony, save the video. There's a lot more in there than when you came on. I think you came on with about 4 or 5 to go. There was some early ones there as well. Now Sonia was asking about the camera that I'm using, and I did a little video on this yesterday. I was testing it out. This is my Sony A7 III, and it's just I guess it's a mirrorless camera. It's like a digital SLR but a bit smaller, and I've managed to hook it up to do live video from it as well, which enables me to you can use different lenses. This is the lens I was using yesterday. It's a 50mm lens, 55mm lens from Sony. I'm using a 35mm as well. One of the cool things about this lens, and excuse me, I'm going to go a little bit out of focus here, is I can change my aperture, so I can make it less blurry here. See, my background's probably didn't really change that much. Let me have a little look. Oh, that's because I put it onto auto. So that's sort of non-blurry, and then I can bring it right down to really blurry as well. And the problem with this being so blurry is that part of my face will be in focus and part won't. So you can do that kind of stuff as well, which is kind of fun. But I'm going to just pull it back a little bit. 2.8 is the way to go there. So yeah, it's a new camera, a new toy, I guess. And it allows me to push it out at a higher quality video as well. Kayleen is saying, I agree, my biggest hits are from the heart, being real. It's so true. I think it probably is easier to do that with some blog topics than others. If you're writing about accounting or the law or those type of things, maybe it is a little bit harder to do that in every post, but I think you can still write about how you feel about your topic, even if it is a dry topic. Maybe that is actually what you feel. This is dry, and acknowledging the elephant in the room, that this is a dry topic and I feel a bit bored by this from time to time, but it's important because of this. Actually acknowledging that how you're feeling is actually going to make it more relatable to people. Because to be honest, you've probably got readers who have to read this blog post to learn something, and they're not excited about it either. And to actually share with them, I understand that might be something that is relatable. Someone's saying, looks fabulous. I feel like I'm sitting right across. You're sitting right across from me instead of through a video screen. So maybe this is my 12th point. Get a camera. That's a bit more personal. This is a kind of wide angle. The one I did yesterday using this zoomed in a bit more. It was even more more intimate. And I looked back on the replay of it and I was like, "Oh, am I too close?" And so maybe, and I can show you that if you want, because I know some of you weren't on yesterday's video, but I can show you the different focal lengths if you want me to. Let me know. David's saying, "On what kind of camera is it?" It is a Sony A7 Mark III. I've actually got a link that I can show you. I'll pop this link in my camera. That's got both the camera link on it, and also it's got the lenses that I'm using. It's the 35mm lens. I think that's got that 35mm lens on there as well. Yeah, it's got the 35mm lens as well. It's not the cheapest camera. It's actually, Sony call it their base model in this range. So it's probably their most entry level, but it's about $2,000 US to get this camera, and then you've got to buy your lens on top of that. So yeah, it's not super cheap. The other option that you could go with is the the Sony A6500. And I suspect there'll be a new version of that as well. It's smaller. It's not as big a full frame camera, but it allows you to use these lenses as well. And there's a lot of vloggers using those at the moment as well. Hey Sharon. Sharon says, was going to say nice camera. I'm pretty sure that's the one we've got. Yeah, so this actually came out 2 weeks ago, but there's been other versions of it previously as well. So the A7 Mark 1, Mark 2, this is the Mark 3, there's also an A7S, an A7R, there's a whole range of them, but this is their new one. It does sound like a race car, Sonia. Hey, Otamin. Did I pronounce that right, Otamin? I'm sorry if I didn't. Welcome to you. Where are you tuning in from? Good to see you. Feel free, if you are a blogger, to share a link. If you've got a question for me today on the topic of getting more personal with your readers or something else, I'm more than happy to kind of take a few minutes to do that. I do have a couple of things I need to do in about 10 minutes, but I'm more than happy to hang out here for a little bit if you would like. I can show you how the different lenses look as well if you would like me to try that. Otherwise, I'm going to go and do some work. I've got to write some sales copy today, which is always fun. Could you get a similar result from your Olympus? Yes, you could. You could use, so the Olympus, actually have your camera here. Here it is. So this is the camera. I think you've got, this is the OMD by Olympus, and you could do the same. It probably is going to come down to the lens you've got. I can't remember which lens you've got, Lainey, but this lens here would do it for you. This is the 20mm lens. So it's all about the aperture. So to get the blurry kind of background, and to go live, I'm pretty sure you could go live through this. Let me have a look. What connection has it got? Has it got a HDMI? Yeah, it does have a HDMI. It's a different cable to the one I've got, but you should probably be able to go live from that as well. The aperture is the key. In terms of getting this more blurry background, it's all about the aperture. So I think this lens, I can't remember what aperture it is. Yeah, I can't remember what it stops down to. I'm pretty sure it's about 1.8 or something like that as well, which enables you to kind of get that blurry background. Now this is 2.8. So yeah, this allows you to get some blurry background as well. It's all about the lens really though, in terms of that background. Most cameras could do it that have any kind of aperture control on them. Dawn, good to see you. Thanks for leaving a comment. You are more than welcome. I've enjoyed doing this talk today as well. I actually got asked, I should have started with this, but I got asked this question about how to make a more personal connection with audience last week in our Facebook group. And so that's kind of stimulated this. So I'm glad you found it useful to you. Lainey says, I think yours is only 55. Probably the length doesn't matter as much. It's more about the aperture. So that's a 55mm that lens, and that's what I was using yesterday. And that created the same sort of thing, but it was a little bit more close. Wendy says, can you summarize the tips? Yeah, sure. I'll just give you a really quick run through. Kathy, I'll do that in a sec. Kathy asked, what type of lighting are you using? I'm using a big window. I can probably show you a couple of things. So that's I can't really show you the big window, but I can show you there. That's one of the lights. It's a little LED light, and it's by Ledgo. Actually, I can show you it without being on because I've got a spare one here. So that's the light that I'm using. It's LEDs. I haven't got a battery for it out at the moment, but it's it's just called Ledgo, LEDGO. I've got a pack of a 4-pack. They're quite good. They're very portable, very light, and you just stick a battery on the back. I think you can plug it into the wall as well, but I don't have the connector for that. And then it's just got a brightness control on the back. So I've got one setting up over that way, which is giving me that light that you can see there. And then I've just got another one pointing at the roof to create less light on this side. So it's you probably want to have sort of a brighter side and a darker side generally to be most simple about it. Now, I am considering buying more of a studio light as well. My problem is these. And a lot of that reflection is actually coming off my computer screen at the moment, which is a bit of a pain, which is why I actually set up the camera a little bit to the side as well. But that's the kind of lighting I'm using, but most of the light in this room at the moment is natural light. Big window is often going to do. Okay, so Wendy asked about summarizing the tips that I shared. Okay, so there were 11 things. This is all about getting more personal with your readers, getting them to feel more connected to you. Telling personal stories was number 1. Writing as you speak, so writing in that more conversational style. Using personal language, particularly personal pronouns, so using you when you're talking to your readers makes it less theoretical and more personal. Picturing a person while you write to them, and part of that was creating an avatar. And number 5 was basing posts upon your readers' real needs. So surveying them, having engagement with them, meeting them if you can, online and offline to understand their needs, but also try and tap into the their feelings. And I talk quite a bit about trying to understand the motivations of your readers, the fears of your readers. Those types of things can help you to weave into your content the fact that you understand their feelings. That can really bring things alive. Going off topic from time to time, using different types of multimedia, adding a face, a voice, expression into your content, using video or imagery, those type of things go a long way. Attending events and actually meeting your readers, even if it's just a small segment of them, can really help you to personalize your content. Working on getting any kind of interaction with your readers, getting a comment, getting a vote, getting a thumbs up, getting someone to follow you, getting someone to subscribe. All of these things are personal investments from your readers, which make them feel more connected to what you're doing. And then number 11 was writing from the heart and writing with passion, allowing yourself to feel something and express those feelings in your content. Paul, good to see you, mate. Hope you're doing well. Yep, reader avatar is your problem. So you want to get the member, go join the member library that I shared a link to in the comments. You'll find the link there, and there's a worksheet to help you to create that avatar that is part of that. Kayleen says, thanks for a great video. Have a great week. Back to work for me. Have a good day. Hope it's productive. Kathy says, thank you for the info on lighting. I've been thinking, I think your setup is better than the previous setup. Your skin tones are more natural and the image is not too harsh. Yeah, so this purely the camera. So this is, I can actually show you, compare the other camera that I was using is that. So that's the other camera, which is more harsh, more contrasty. It's all in focus, less kind of blurry unless I get really close. I think if I do that, it might put the rest out a little bit. No, it doesn't even do that. So that's what I was using. That's still Logitech's, I think it's called a C922 Pro. It's much cheaper. It's probably a 20th of the price of the other thing. But a lot of the cameras that you've probably got at home, you know, most digital SLRs, so this was my old camera. This is much larger than what I'm using now. This could do it. I just wasn't. And so I've made the investment. So most of those sort of SLRs are Canons and Nikons, Pentax, those type of things. As long as that came out in the last few years, most of them will allow you to connect and go live. What you would need is something to turn your camera signal into something that, you know, a tool like Ecamm, which is what I'm using. So what I'm using is this one. I showed this yesterday. This is Blackmagic's Ultra Studio Mini Recorder, and this takes the signal from the camera through the HDMI in and puts it into my iMac and enables it to be a camera source, essentially. So that enables you to do that. Paul saying, yep, no, I've seen that. Kayleen says, content idea for you. How to narrow down your avatar when your reader's needs are broad. Okay, I'll do some thinking on that. Paul says, if you have a platform, you should use it for good as well as talking about your topic. My topic is rugby, but I tweeted about using reusable veg bags recently. Yes. So, yeah. So using your platform, using your audience for social good, that's so true. A simple example of that, I went to Tanzania with a not-for-profit, probably 5 or 6 years ago now. I was actually just looking at this picture actually this morning. So this is a picture that the not-for-profit gave me at the end. I was there, and it was a disability hospital. And they asked me to go and talk about this disability hospital in Tanzania on my blogs. And the first reaction I had was, well, that's not relevant. It's off topic. How can I talk about disability on ProBlogger? How can I talk about Tanzania on ProBlogger? How can I talk about that on Digital Photography School? And then I realized that I could weave in the topics that I was writing about in this particular trip. So on ProBlogger, I wrote some posts about using your blog for social good, talked about blogging from the road, blogging where I couldn't get much internet access, so I found ways to talk about this thing. Digital Photography School, I just shared the photos I was taking on Digital Photography School. And what I found, I was really nervous about doing it. I was like, this is too off topic. But actually what I found is that my audience really appreciated seeing that I had a heart for something other than my topic. And in finding some relevant ways to talk about it, they appreciated that too. But using the platform for social good and to make a difference and to bring attention to a topic like that really made a difference. We helped raise some money, we helped raise awareness, but it also helped my blogs as well and helped make that connection with people. I didn't expect that when I went over that would be the result. So yeah, anything that you can do like that can bring things alive as well. You just need to find a way to tie it in as well to the topic if you can. Paul says, I use the webcam in my MacBook for live streaming. Yeah, and so it's totally fine to do that. I can't actually show you my iMac's webcam for some reason. It's not picking it up. It's totally fine. And, you know, same with using your iPhone and doing live video from that. You know, you use what you've got, but, you know, as you're able to upgrade it, it can make a difference as well. He says, I think it's time to upgrade my camera. Yeah, maybe it is. Maybe it is. And this one, I can highly recommend it. I can recommend that Olympus that I showed you before. I think that's a great little camera. Most of the entry-level Canons would probably be able to do that as well. Yeah, there's some great cameras out there. That's the Sony A6500 series, much more affordable way of doing it as well. Check out Digital Photography School, lots there. All right, I'm going to say goodbye. Actually, before I go, I think I promised someone that I was going to show you the other lens framings. This is going to get a little messy because I'm going to take this lens off this camera to do it, but it will show you some different framings. Hopefully this doesn't end the stream. Okay, I know you're gone all blurry, very grey. So what I'm going to put on now is the 55mm. And I'm going to take the lens cap off, which might help. So that's the 55, so much closer in, more intimate, more blurry background because it's a longer focal length. That's having an impact there as well. That was the lens that I was just watching. This is a bigger lens, more expensive lens as well. That's the 35mm. And now I'm just going to do something that's going to completely freak everyone out, completely, and I'm going to put on an 85mm. So this is going to get even more close as well. Oh. Okay, wait for it. This is going to show my nose hairs. It's so big. All right. So I'm sitting in exactly the same spot now. And you can see there how shallow the depth of field is. You can even see, you know, bad eyebrow hairs now. So that, I would probably really, to do this type of thing, I need to sit further back. But again, you're getting even more blown out background as well. So, it's a bit freaky. All right, probably not going to do that one. I don't think that would be the camera for these, although I can talk very personally about very personal things and hopefully make a much more personal connection. So this is where changing the aperture would probably help a little bit. What I was using there was f1.4, now it's sort of a little bit better. Anyway, they're the lenses options. I didn't buy any of those other ones. I've only bought one lens so far. I've borrowed this one and the 35mm. Full life size, yes, it is very close. I feel very uncomfortable being this close. This is the lens I've been using on my Instagram to take pictures of my kids, yeah, really loving it. That's the candlelight lens. It actually is. You can this lens you can shoot in almost dark on this camera. It's remarkable how dark you can go. It's quite amazing. I'll just show you. So these are some pictures I took of one of my boys. This is all on Instagram if you want to look at them a bit bigger. But this one was used. These were using a 55mm. So it takes a nice still image as well. These ones here were the 55mm as well. So it's just gorgeous. The background, I love it. That one's iPhone, but these ones here. So it takes a nice little photo. All right, enough. There I am again. I'm going to see you guys later. I've got to go and write some sales copy. Thanks for tuning in today. If you've been watching the replay, thanks for tuning in. Feel free to leave a comment, even if you are watching the replay. That's totally fine. I do check back on them over the coming days. And I do these every week at the same time. So if you've been watching, you want to see more of these. I sometimes do more Q&A style ones. Just hit the notify me button at the end of this video, and hopefully Facebook will let you know as well. Thanks everyone. I'm going to see you next week.